The convention center lights dimmed to manufactured twilight. 3,000 people sat in folding chairs, some clutching programs, others holding hands with strangers. The stage stretched wide enough to land aircraft, bathed in soft blue glow that suggested clouds. Heaven hope all the things Vought International's marketing team tested well, with focus groups aged 35 to 64. "Welcome to Believe Expo." The host's voice carried that specific warmth reserved for prosperity gospel preachers and timeshare salesmen. His smile gleamed white under the spotlights. "Today we're offering something humanity has dreamed about since the dawn of consciousness. Today, you'll experience paradise." A woman in the third row wiped tears before the presentation even started. Her husband squeezed her shoulder. They'd driven 11 hours from Ohio after their daughter's funeral. The Believe brochure promised they could see her again. 30 seconds. That's all they needed. Just 30 seconds to say goodbye properly. The host gestured to a sleek pod center stage, all curves and chrome lit from within like an expensive coffin. The Heaven Simulation Chamber uses a revolutionary combination of Vought neurokinetic technology and our proprietary belief interface. We map your neural patterns, access your deepest spiritual connections, and for 30 glorious seconds, you'll reunite with those you've lost. Technical jargon dressed up like miracle work. The pod hummed, ready to sell salvation by the half minute. Behind the curtains, Ashley Barrett gripped her tablet hard enough to crack the screen protector. As Vaught's senior vice president of hero management, she'd greenlit worse PR stunts than this. The Believe initiative had tested phenomenally with religious demographics. Congress loved it. The board loved it. Homelander tolerated it because it kept his approval rating stable. But something felt wrong. She couldn't identify the source. The equipment functioned perfectly. The volunteer pre-screened media-trained paid handsomely, waited in the wings. Security swept the venue twice. The 7 stood backstage in full costume, ready for their photo-op moment, when the simulation ended and everyone cried grateful tears. Still, wrong. Our first volunteer today lost his mother to cancer 6 months ago. The host guided a young man onto stage. Cameras tracked every step. Today, Vought helps him heal. The man climbed into the pod, sensors attached to his temples. The lid closed with a pneumatic hiss that echoed through the sound system. Blue light intensified. Somewhere in the control booth, a technician monitored neural activity and prepared to inject exactly 30 seconds of chemically induced euphoria paired with carefully crafted visual stimuli drawn from the volunteer's social media history photo uploads and a questionnaire he'd filled out 3 weeks ago. The light show began. Audience members leaned forward. Some reached for phones to record, then remembered Vaught's strict no-filming policy. This moment belonged to the brand. They could purchase commemorative footage afterward digitally watermarked. Piano music drifted through the speakers. Ashley's head snapped up. That wasn't in the program. She checked her tablet. The audio engineer's panel showed no music cued. No input registered. Yet the melody continued unhurried and precise, each note falling like water on stone. The host faltered mid-sentence. His earpiece crackled with confused chatter from the production team. He recovered smoothly, smile never wavering, but his eyes searched the wings for explanation. The music didn't belong to any playlist. It wasn't recorded. The melody possessed the flawed warmth of live performance. Fingers on keys, breath and intention behind every phrase. Melancholic, patient, older than advertising. In the lighting booth, an operator watched his board flicker. He hadn't touched anything. The blue glow shifted subtle at first, warming toward amber, like late afternoon sun through stained glass. Not the approved color scheme, not the tested optimal shade for evoking spiritual comfort. The volunteer in the pod stirred. His session hadn't started yet. Homelander stepped from behind the curtain cape, settling around his shoulders. He scanned the crowd with casual authority, the way gods might observe mortals at play. His smile held for the cameras that weren't filming yet. Everything proceeded according to script. The music was probably some tech malfunction, easily fixed, barely worth his attention. Then the piano stopped. Silence rushed in to fill the space. Not the quiet of held breath, but something denser. The kind of stillness that precedes revelation or disaster when the world pauses between heartbeats. A man walked from the shadows behind the stage, not from the wings, not from the doors. He simply stood in a space that had been empty a moment before, as if he'd always occupied that exact position, and everyone had failed to notice until now. He wore a black suit, perfectly tailored, expensive, without being ostentatious. His shirt was white collar open at the throat. No tie, no jewelry, no badge or branding or anything that suggested affiliation with Vought or its subsidiaries. Dark hair, pale skin, and an expression of such profound calm, it bordered on boredom. He looked at the heaven simulation chamber, the way a jeweler might examine a child's crayon drawing of a diamond. Ashley's tablet slipped from her hands. It clattered on the floor screen, cracking. She didn't bend to retrieve it. Couldn't. Every instinct she'd honed through years of crisis management screamed warnings her conscious mind couldn't articulate. The stranger's gaze swept across the stage, the audience, the cameras. Not searching. Cataloging. He saw Vought's machinery of faith, the pod, the lights, the carefully orchestrated emotional manipulation, and something like amusement touched his features. When he spoke, his voice carried without effort, clear and measured, cutting through the manufactured atmosphere like steel through silk. "You're selling faith." He tilted his head slightly. How quaint. The host opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. His media training provided no script for this scenario. The stranger took 3 steps forward, unhurried. Each footfall silent despite the stage's hollow construction. He stopped at the edge of the platform, surveying the crowd with the patience of someone who'd outlasted empires. "I came to see the merchandise." Homelander's smile froze. His hands clenched. Blue light from the pod reflected in his eyes, but for the first time in recent memory, he wasn't the brightest thing on stage. The stranger looked directly at him. Not with challenge, not with deference. With the sort of acknowledgement one might offer a statue in a park, present noted ultimately decorative. Homelander's jaw tightened. He took 1 step forward, shoulders squaring. The faintest glow warmed behind his eyes, red threatening the prelude to violence that had ended 100 fights before they started. Then nothing. The light faded. His foot stayed planted. Not because he chose restraint, but because some older instinct, something buried beneath ego and performance, whispered a warning he couldn't name. Ashley found her voice, though it emerged higher than intended. "Security won't help." The stranger didn't look at her. His attention remained on the pod, the stage, the entire elaborate performance. "None of this will." He turned toward the audience. 3,000 faces stared back. Some confused, some frightened, some already reaching for explanations. Special effect, surprise guest, elaborate publicity stunt. The woman from Ohio gripped her husband's hand. She'd paid 2 months' salary for tickets to Believe Expo, for 30 seconds with her daughter, for something, anything to fill the hole in her chest. The stranger saw her, saw all of them, saw their desperate hunger for meaning in a world that packaged and sold transcendence like any other commodity. "You want heaven." His voice carried no judgment, no mockery, pure observation. "I wonder what you'll do when it stops pretending." The host found his courage, or at least his contractual obligation. "Sir, you can't. I'm not here to destroy anything." The stranger's lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. "I'm simply curious what happens when the performance ends." He paused, meeting Homelander's stare across the stage. It always does eventually. Silence again. The kind that precedes earthquakes. Ashley's tablet, still on the floor, displayed a notification. An alert from Vaught's legal department, automated and stark unidentified individual. Protocol breach. Immediate containment required. The stranger glanced down at the cracked screen. His amusement deepened. He didn't introduce himself. Didn't justify his presence. Didn't ask permission or offer explanation. The lights didn't flicker. Thunder didn't roll. The ceiling didn't split to reveal choirs or flames. Nothing changed in the physical world. But everyone in that convention center felt it a fundamental shift, like gravity reversing for an instant before snapping back into place. The piano music resumed soft and inexorable, though no one sat at any keys. And the stranger stood center stage patient, as stone waiting to see what humanity would do when confronted with something that refused to play by their rules. The Vaught Tower war room smelled like expensive coffee and rising panic. 52 floors above street level, Ashley Barrett stood before a wall of screens, each cycling through footage from Believe Expo. The same moment replayed from 18 different camera angles. The stranger appearing from nowhere. His 3 steps forward. That smile that wasn't quite a smile. "Run it again," she said. The tech operator complied without comment. He'd already run it 17 times. The video showed the same impossible thing, each loop. 1 frame empty stage. Next frame man in black suit as if he'd been standing there all along and the cameras had simply failed to notice. "Facial recognition." Ashley's voice had gone flat the way it did when she sensed her job evaporating in real time. "Nothing? Not in any database, Vaught, Federal, Interpol, nothing. It's like he doesn't exist. Everyone exists." Ashley circled the conference table. 7 senior executives sat in expensive chairs, faces illuminated by laptop screens. None of them looked at her. Bad sign. "Get me his IMDb page, his LinkedIn, his fucking Tinder profile. I don't care. Find him." "We're trying, ma'am." The legal team occupied the far end of the table. 3 partners from Vaught's retained firm, all billing north of 800 per hour, all looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. The senior partner cleared his throat. "Ms. Barrett, we need to discuss containment options. This individual disrupted a corporate event, trespassed on private property, and interfered with contracted services. We have grounds for..." "For what?" Ashley spun toward him. "Arrest, you want to arrest someone we can't identify. Someone who appeared out of thin air on a stage with 50 security personnel watching. We have protocols. Your protocols assume normal people doing normal crimes." She gestured at the frozen image on the central screen. The stranger looking directly at the camera, his expression patient, amused, like he knew exactly how this conversation would go. "Does that look normal to you?" Silence answered her. The door opened. Everyone straightened reflexively, even the lawyers. Homelander entered without knocking, cape settling around his shoulders like fresh snow. He'd changed out of his Believe Expo appearance suit into something cleaner, more camera-ready. His smile held professional warmth, the kind that tested well with demographics aged 18 to 49. Well, he didn't sit. Gods rarely did. What do we know? Ashley pulled up a summary screen. Unknown male, late 20s to early 30s in appearance. No biometric matches, no digital footprint, no compound V signature when we ran thermal analysis of the footage. So he's not a soup. Homelander's tone flattened. We don't think so. But he's also not normal. Everyone's normal until proven otherwise. Homelander crossed to the window, looking down at Manhattan's nighttime grid. He's probably some tech genius with a cloaking device, or a magician. You people overthink everything. Ashley exchanged glances with her head of analytics. They'd worked together long enough to communicate in eyebrow movements. His expression said, "Should we tell him?" She nodded fractionally. Homelander, when you stepped toward him on the stage, what did you feel? His shoulders tensed. Barely visible, but Ashley had spent 5 years reading his body language for warning signs. I didn't feel anything. Your biometrics spiked. Heart rate jumped 40% in 2 seconds. I was assessing a threat. His voice carried an edge now, the sound of a man who didn't appreciate being questioned. That's what leaders do. They assess. Of course. Ashley knew when to retreat. We're just trying to establish a profile. The more data we have, the data is simple. Homelander turned from the window. Some lunatic crashed our event. He made threats. And now we need to bring him in before he becomes a PR nightmare. He smiled again, but this time it looked painted on. I'll handle it personally. Actually, the senior partner ventured. We were hoping to approach this diplomatically first. If he has abilities we don't understand, a frontal confrontation might what? Homelander's eyes caught the light wrong. I'm the Homelander? There's nothing I can't handle. No one argued. Arguments required career suicide, and the room was fresh out of volunteers. Ashley cleared her throat. What if we try to negotiate, bring him in for a conversation? Feel out what he wants. What makes you think he wants anything? Everyone wants something. She pulled up the final frame from Believe Expo, zoomed on the stranger's face. He showed up at our event specifically, our Faith Initiative. That's not random. Homelander studied the image. Something flickered across his features, not quite fear, but its distant cousin. The thing he'd felt on stage when the stranger looked at him like furniture. Fine. Negotiate. But when he says no, and he will say no because men like that always do, then I step in. He moved toward the door, cape swirling. Keep me updated. After he left the room, exhaled collectively. He's rattled, Ashley's analytics chief murmured. Homelander doesn't get rattled. First time for everything. Ashley turned back to the screen's mind, already 3 moves ahead. Get me everything on mysterious appearances in the last decade. Religious contexts, corporate events, anywhere. Someone showed up without logical explanation. And find out who that stranger talked to after the cameras cut. Across the city, in a safe house that smelled like gun oil and old takeout. Billy Butcher watched the same footage on a laptop, held together with duct tape and spite. Play it again, he said. Huey Campbell, perched on a torn couch with his own laptop, shook his head. I've played it 12 times. It doesn't make more sense. That's because you're looking for sense. Butcher leaned back, eyes never leaving the screen. This ain't about sense. Frenchie stood near the kitchenette, methodically cleaning a pistol that didn't need cleaning. His hands moved on autopsy, but his attention fixed on the video. No heat signature, no electromagnetic distortion, no trace of compound V in his system, assuming we trust Vaught's scans. We don't trust anything Vaught says. But in this case, I think they are as confused as we are. Kimiko sat cross-legged on the floor, watching the loop play out. Her hands moved in quick signs. Frenchie translated without looking away from his work. She says he's not like the others. Not manufactured. Something that existed before Vaught turned people into products. Yeah. Butcher scratched his jaw. And how's she know that? More signs faster this time. She says when you've been made into a weapon, you recognize other weapons. And you recognize things that were never weapons at all. Frenchie paused. She says this man is the second category. Huey replayed the moment where the stranger looked directly at Homelander. Did you see his face? He wasn't afraid? Not even a little. Stupid then. I don't think so. Huey zoomed in on the stranger's expression. Look at him. That's not bravado. That's, I don't know, certainty, like he knows something we don't. Everyone knows something we don't. Butcher closed the laptop. Question is whether it's worth knowing. Vaught's going to go after him. Course they will. He embarrassed them on live camera. Made their whole heaven scam look like the carnival trick it is. Butcher stood reaching for his coat. They'll try to recruit him first. Turn him into a brand. When that fails, and it will fail, they'll try to bury him. Should we warn him? Warn him. Butcher laughed short and sharp. Mate, did you see his face? That's not someone who needs warnings. Huey chewed his lip, a nervous habit he'd never broken. What if he's worse than Homelander? The question hung in the stale air. Frenchie stopped cleaning his gun. Kimiko's hands went still. Butcher met Huey's eyes. Then we're all properly fucked, aren't we? That's not comforting. Wasn't meant to be. Butcher shrugged into his coat. But here's the thing, Homelander's scared. You saw it, same as me. That God complex, he's got that unshakable certainty that he's the biggest bastard in the room. It cracked. Just for a second, but it cracked. So anything that scares Homelander might be worth knowing. He headed for the door. I'm going to find out who our mystery man is before Vought does. You lot stay here, dig into every weird appearance, every unexplained event in the last year. Anything that doesn't fit the normal pattern of superpowered wankers doing superpowered wanker things. After Butcher left, Huey turned to Frenchie. You think he's right about this being bigger than normal? Frenchie reassembled his pistol with practiced efficiency. Mon ami, in my experience, when something appears from nowhere and makes Homelander nervous, it is either very good or very, very bad. He slid the magazine home with a decisive click. And we have not had very good in a long time. Kimiko's hands moved again. Frenchie watched, then translated softly. She says the man at Believe Expo smiled, like someone watching a play he'd seen before, like he knew how it would end, and found it sad. Huey pulled his laptop closer, opening new search tabs. That's weirdly specific. She notices things. Frenchie checked the pistol's safety. And she is usually right. Back in Vought Tower, Ashley received a message on her secure phone. Unknown number. She almost deleted it, then saw the attached video file. It was footage from Believe Expo, but from an angle they didn't have. Backstage after the cameras officially cut. The stranger still on stage looking directly at a security camera no one had told him about. He spoke 4 words, quiet and clear. I'll wait for you. Then he walked off stage, and the footage ended. Ashley's hands shook as she forwarded the file to her team with a single instruction: find him. Now. Somewhere in Manhattan, in a building that hadn't existed yesterday and would be gone by tomorrow, someone played piano. The same melody from Believe Expo, note for note. Patient, melancholic, older than advertising. The music continued into the night. In Vought Tower, emergency protocols multiplied like cancer cells. In basements and safe houses, theories hardened into operational plans. Across the city, people convinced themselves they still controlled what came next. The piano didn't care. It simply played, heard by no one, witnessed by nothing mattering to everyone who'd forgotten what truth sounded like. The invitation arrived at precisely 9 in the morning, delivered by courier to an address that shouldn't have existed. A building on 5th Avenue wedged between a coffee shop and a boutique law firm, occupying space that city records showed as vacant lots since 2019. The courier, a Vought intern named Marcus, who'd drawn the short straw, stood on the sidewalk staring at the door that his GPS insisted was there, but his eyes kept trying to skip over. Black wood. Brass handle. No number, no sign, nothing to indicate purpose or occupancy. He knocked. The door opened before his knuckles left the wood. The stranger from Believe Expo stood in the threshold, wearing the same black suit. In daylight, his features should have been clearer, more defined. Instead, Marcus found his eyes sliding away, unable to hold focus for more than a second. Like trying to stare directly at the sun. Delivery for... Marcus checked his tablet, though he'd memorized the instructions. The occupant of this address, that would be me. The stranger's voice carried the patience of someone who'd waited through centuries and found minutes trivial. Marcus held out the envelope. Vought corporate seal embossed on cream paper that cost more than his monthly rent. They're requesting a meeting, today if possible. How polite. The stranger took the envelope without opening it. "Tell them I'll arrive at noon. Should I wait for a written response?" "That is my response." Marcus nodded, retreating down the steps faster than professionalism required. Halfway to the subway, he realized he'd forgotten to ask the stranger's name. Then he realized he'd forgotten what the stranger looked like. Then he realized he was shaking. He called in sick for the rest of the week. The Vought executive suite occupied the entire 57th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered Manhattan like a gift. The boardroom table was solid mahogany, 15 feet long, surrounded by chairs that cost more than compact cars. 6 executives sat in careful hierarchy, Ashley Barrett at the head. 2 lawyers flanked her tablets, open recording everything. At precisely noon, the stranger walked through the door. No one had opened. One of the lawyers dropped his stylus. It clattered on the table, impossibly loud. Ashley stood extending her hand with practiced corporate warmth. "Thank you for coming. I'm Ashley Barrett, Senior Vice President of—" "I know who you are." He didn't take her hand, didn't move toward the table. "You've spent the last 18 hours researching me and found nothing. Now you're wondering if I can be bought, controlled, or eliminated. The answer to all 3 is no." The room's temperature didn't drop, but everyone felt colder. Ashley lowered her hand. "Then why are you here?" "Curiosity." He moved to the window, looking down at the city. "You build empires on faith, then commodify it. I wanted to see how you'd react when confronted with something you can't package." "We're not here to confront anyone." Ashley gestured to the empty chair. "We'd like to discuss a partnership. Your appearance at Believe Expo generated significant public interest. With the right positioning, we could turn me into a brand, help you reach a wider audience. The same audience you're currently lying to about heaven, heroism, and hope." He turned from the window. "No, thank you." One of the senior executives, Gerald Chen, Chief Marketing Officer, 23 years at Vought, cleared his throat. "Sir, I think you're misunderstanding our intentions. We're offering a legitimate collaboration. Compensation would be substantial. 7 figures to start with performance bonuses. You can't buy what I have. Everyone has a price. Do they?" The stranger moved to the table now, studying the assembled faces like a biologist examining slides. "Tell me, Mr. Chen, what's your price for admitting that you approved the Believe initiative, knowing it was fraudulent, that the Heaven Simulation Chamber is just VR and pharmaceuticals designed to extract money from grieving families?" Gerald's face went white. "I never—" "You signed off on the budget. June 14th, 2:23 p.m. You told your team it was printing money from tears." The stranger's tone didn't change, didn't accuse, simply stated fact. "You laughed when you said it. How do you—" "Everyone talks to themselves. Most people just don't listen." Ashley intervened, voice sharp with control. "We're not here to discuss past decisions. We're here to explore future opportunities." She pulled a leather folder from beneath the table. "We've drafted a preliminary agreement, purely exploratory. No commitments, just an outline of what partnership might look like." She slid it across the mahogany. The stranger opened the folder. 20 pages, single-spaced legal terminology, dense as concrete. He read in silence. No one spoke. The city hummed beyond the windows, oblivious. After 3 minutes, he closed the folder. This is remarkably honest for what it is. Ashley exhaled slightly. "We believe in transparency. You believe in contracts that look transparent while obscuring everything that matters." He tapped the first page. Clause 7, subsection C. "You've granted yourselves approval authority over anything I say publicly. Clause 12 allows Vought to terminate if I engage in behavior inconsistent with brand values. Clause 19 gives you ownership of my likeness in perpetuity." Standard industry terms. Standard chains. He looked up. "You're not offering partnership. You're offering a very expensive leash." The senior lawyer, Patricia Morrison, Harvard Law, undefeated in contract disputes, leaned forward. Sir, if you have concerns about specific language, we can certainly negotiate. I don't negotiate, I simply clarify what's already true. He placed his hand flat on the contract. Nothing dramatic happened. No light show, no sound effects, no reality-bending spectacle. The paper didn't burn or transform. It simply adjusted. Patricia gasped. On her tablet, the contract text was changing. Not being deleted or rewritten, but revealing itself. Words she'd carefully buried in legal prose emerged stark and plain. Euphemisms dissolved. Obfuscation cleared. Hero partnership opportunity became controlled asset acquisition. Mutual benefit arrangement became exclusive exploitation rights. Brand alignment became behavioral compliance enforcement. Ashley snatched up the folder. The physical pages showed the same changes. She flipped to her copy on the table. Identical. She pulled out her phone, opening the email with the PDF attachment. Changed. Every version, every copy, every iteration of the contract, across Vaught's servers, all showing the same naked truth. Not altered, not hacked, just stripped of pretense. What did you do? Patricia's voice climbed toward panic. I didn't do anything. The stranger stepped back from the table. I simply made the contract say what it means. You wrote a document designed to control me while pretending to partner with me. Now it's honest about that intention. Gerald stood abruptly. This is corporate sabotage. You've tampered with legal documents. I haven't tampered. I've clarified. Every word in that contract is yours. Every clause, every condition, every carefully constructed trap. I just removed the cosmetics. Ashley's fingers flew across her phone. She pulled up archived versions, backups, even the original draft from 3 days ago. All changed. All brutally honest. This isn't possible, she whispered. It's remarkably simple. The stranger moved toward the door. You built an empire on dressing lies in professional language. I'm just not interested in the wardrobe. Wait. Ashley's professional mask cracked slightly. If you won't work with us, what do you want? He paused at the threshold. Didn't answer directly. Didn't need to. Ashley understood then, with sudden cold clarity, that this wasn't negotiation. It wasn't even confrontation. It was observation. They were being studied, their reactions, their strategies, their desperate scramble to maintain control over something that had never been controllable. They were the experiment. Patricia found her voice, though it shook. You can't just... We have legal teams, crisis management, entire departments dedicated to maintaining fictions. He looked back at her. What happens when the fictions refuse to hold? Before anyone could answer, he was gone. Not disappeared. Not vanished in dramatic fashion. Simply gone the way he'd arrived, as if the space he'd occupied had returned to its natural empty state. Ashley stared at the contract in her hands. The words hadn't changed back. Wouldn't change back. She knew that with absolute certainty, though, she couldn't explain how. Her phone buzzed. Then again. Then continuously. Text from legal. We have a problem with the internal believe contracts. Email from compliance. Archived documents are showing discrepancies. Call from internal communications. The executive memos are, she didn't need to read further. Across Vought Tower, internal systems were confessing. Archived drafts no longer hid behind corporate euphemisms. Internal budget proposals spelled out what they'd carefully obscured. Executive meeting minutes from closed-door sessions revealed conversations that were never meant to see daylight. Still contained, still within the building, but spreading through every server, every backup, every carefully maintained internal record. Gerald grabbed his tablet, pulling up an internal strategy deck from last month. Slide 3, where they'd written, providing comfort and closure to families in grief, now read exploiting bereavement for profit margins. The document was marked internal use only. Still locked behind their firewall. Still technically secure, but honest now. Brutally, undeniably honest. Jesus Christ. Get Homelander, Ashley said quietly. What's he going to do? I don't know. But if this spreads beyond the building... She looked at the contract again, reading her own words, made naked. We need to contain this before it becomes external. In the lobby 57 floors below, security reviewed the footage. The stranger had entered the building at 11:58. They'd tracked him to the elevator. The elevator had gone to 57, then nothing. No record of him leaving. No footage of him in the hallway. No thermal signature, no motion sensors triggered. He'd simply ceased to exist in their system, leaving behind only the consequences of his presence. One of the guards rewound the lobby footage, watching the stranger walk through the door. You see that? He pointed at the screen. His partner leaned closer. See what? The way he moves? Like he's not... The guard struggled for words. Like he's not quite here. Like the building's just tolerating his presence. That's stupid. Yeah. The guard saved the clip anyway. Probably. Somewhere in Manhattan, piano music played in a building that wouldn't be there tomorrow. The melody remained patient, melancholic, older than contracts. The city continued its afternoon rhythm. Vought Tower's 57th floor descended into controlled chaos, racing to assess the damage before it breached their internal systems. And across every server, every backup, every carefully crafted internal document, the truth sat waiting behind firewalls. Not celebrating, not attacking, just existing honest and patient, one leak away from the world. Homelander arrived at the backstage area of Believe Expo 90 minutes after Ashley's emergency call. The venue had been cleared as security doubled and every entrance monitored. He landed on the roof because walking through doors was for people who needed permission. The stranger stood exactly where he'd been 3 hours ago. Center stage under dead lights, hands in his pockets. Waiting, not pacing, not checking a phone, not fidgeting with that nervous energy humans carried when isolated too long, just standing patient as architecture. Homelander descended through the rafters' boots, touching down on the stage with deliberate weight. His cape settled. His smile locked into place, the one that made children feel safe and adults feel protected. The one that had sold $1 billion in merchandise. So, his voice carried the casual authority of someone who'd never been told no. You're the guy causing problems. The stranger turned, looked at him, didn't straighten, didn't square shoulders or adjust posture or do any of the 100 subtle things people did when confronting power. I haven't caused anything. I've simply stopped preventing what was already there. Cute. Homelander stepped closer, maintaining the smile. But you crashed our event, sabotaged our contracts, made my people panic. That's 3 problems I need to solve. Your people panicked because they realized their machinery depends on deception. I didn't create that dependency. You think you're clever. Homelander's smile sharpened. You think showing up with some magic tricks and philosophy makes you special? I don't need to be special, I simply am. That phrase, the casual dismissal of needing to be anything, struck something deep. Homelander's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, recovered. But the stranger had seen it. Everyone needs to be something, Homelander said. Everyone wants recognition, power, attention. You wouldn't have shown up at Believe Expo if you didn't want people to see you. I wanted to see them. There's a difference. Homelander laughed. Short, sharp, utterly without humor. Right. You're above it all. You don't care about being noticed or feared or worshipped. He stepped closer into intimate distance. Then why are you still here? Curiosity. Bullshit. Homelander's eyes glowed faint red. Not threatening yet, just warm enough to notice. Everyone performs. Everyone needs an audience, even you. The stranger tilted his head slightly as if examining something unexpected. Is that what you believe, that existence requires witness? I know it does. Then let me ask you something. The stranger's voice remained level, conversational. If no one was watching right now, no cameras, no people, no one to verify what happens here, Who would you be? The question landed wrong. Homelander felt it twist in his chest, barbed and cold. I'd be the same person I always am. Would you? The glow behind Homelander's eyes intensified. Red light spilled across the stage painting shadows, sharp and hungry. You want to test me? You want to see what happens when someone doesn't bow down and beg for mercy? I want, the stranger said quietly, to see what happens when you can't find anyone to bow. Homelander's jaw clenched. The laser built behind his eyes that familiar heat. The power that had ended threats and carved monuments and reminded the world exactly who stood at the top of the food chain. He released it. Twin beams of coherent light, each hot enough to melt steel, crossed the 3 feet between them in a microsecond. The beams curved, not deflected by force, not blocked by barrier. They simply adjusted trajectory. Bent around the stranger like water around stone, following a path that avoided him entirely. The lasers struck the massive promotional poster behind the stage. Homelander's face 20 feet tall, smiling that trademarked smile. The beams cut through his own image, severing it at the eyes. The poster curled, burned, fell in smoking pieces. Homelander stared. His power hadn't failed. The beams had functioned perfectly. They'd simply refused to connect with the target, as if reality itself had quietly suggested an alternative. Bow look, the stranger observed, is how the trapped signal their confinement. What did you... Homelander's voice climbed toward rage, toward the volume that preceded destruction. Then stopped. The stranger hadn't moved, hadn't flinched, hadn't even acknowledged the attack beyond that single comment. And Homelander realized with creeping horror that he'd just revealed something. Showed his hand. Proved a point he hadn't meant to prove. You're afraid, the stranger said. Not gloating, simply observing. Not of me, of what I represent. I'm not afraid of anything. You're afraid of irrelevance. The stranger took 1 step forward. Homelander took 1 back. Neither commented on it. You've built an identity entirely dependent on being seen, being feared, being worshipped. You are quite literally what people believe you are. That's not... If no one was watching, the stranger continued, voice still maddeningly calm, you wouldn't know how to be. Your entire existence is performance, and performance requires audience. Shut up. So here's my question. The stranger's gaze held him, pinned him, dissected him with surgical precision. If I remove the audience, what remains? Something shifted. Homelander felt it before he understood it. A wrongness in the air, like atmospheric pressure dropping before a storm. The stage lights still glowed. The cameras still recorded. But something fundamental had changed. He turned toward the wing, where Ashley and her team monitored everything through tablets and phones. They were looking at their screens, but not at him. Ashley's eyes tracked across her tablet, scanning footage of the stage. But her gaze slid past Homelander like oil on water. She saw the burned poster, saw the stranger. Her eyes moved to where Homelander stood and continued past, like he wasn't there. Not invisible. The cameras captured him. The light reflected off his suit. But human attention, that crucial element that gave him substance, meaning, purpose, it wouldn't hold. Hey! Homelander shouted. His voice carried. Ashley flinched at the sound, looked toward it. Her eyes found the stranger. Settled there. Didn't drift to Homelander at all. Hey! Louder now, desperate. Look at me. The tech operator glanced up from his screen, scanned the stage, frowned, slightly confused by the floating sound, returned to his tablet. Homelander's breath came faster. He turned to the nearest camera, stepping directly into frame. Filled it completely. His face, his suit, his presence undeniable, unavoidable. In the monitoring station, the operator watched the feed, saw the stage. saw the stranger standing calmly. His eyes passed over the rest of the frame without acknowledgement. "This isn't—" Homelander spun back to the stranger. "What did you do? I haven't done anything to you." The stranger's expression held something almost like sympathy. "I've simply demonstrated what you've always feared. That your power isn't inherent, it's granted. And like all granted things, it can be revoked. I am the Homelander." The shout echoed through the empty venue, raw and ragged. "Everyone knows who I am." "They did?" The stranger gestured toward the monitoring station. "But right now, at this moment, they can't seem to remember why they should care." Homelander flew at him, not a measured assault. Not tactical. Pure animal panic, the desperate violence of something that felt its existence slipping away. He covered the distance in a heartbeat, fist pulled back, prepared to drive it through the stranger's chest and out his spine. The punch stopped, not blocked. Homelander's fist simply ceased moving. Froze in space 6 inches from impact, as if he'd struck an invisible wall. But there was no wall. No resistance. Just the sudden, absolute certainty that the action wouldn't complete. He pulled back. Tried again from a different angle. Same result. "You can't touch me," the stranger said quietly. "Not because I'm stopping you. Because on some level you understand that I'm not playing the same game. And your power only functions within the rules you've accepted." Homelander screamed. No words. Just sound the howl of something facing a reality it couldn't punch, couldn't laser, couldn't dominate into submission. Ashley's phone buzzed. She checked it, frowning at a notification from social media monitoring. What the hell? Her analytics lead looked over. What? The Believe Expo clips are going viral, but... She scrolled through comments. Everyone's talking about the mysterious man who appeared. The piano music. But Homelander... She pulled up footage. They're not mentioning him at all. He was right there on stage. I know, but look. She showed him the trending hashtags. Hashtag Believe Mystery. Hashtag Who is he? Hashtag Piano Man. Nothing about Homelander. It's like... She struggled for words. It's like people's attention just slides right past him. On stage, Homelander had stopped screaming. He stood perfectly still, chest-heaving, fists clenched. The stranger watched him with patient neutrality. "This is temporary," Homelander said, voice barely controlled. "Whatever you did, it'll wear off." "Perhaps?" The stranger tilted his head. "Or perhaps people will simply forget why they were supposed to care. Attention is a habit after all. Break the habit long enough and it doesn't reform. They'll remember me. You're whatever they believe you are. Right now, they don't believe anything." The stranger moved toward the exit. "You wanted to know what I want. I want to see what you become when you're not being watched. When there's no audience to perform for." He paused at the edge of the stage. Most people discover themselves in those moments. But you... He looked back. "I suspect there's nothing there to discover." Then he was gone. The wrongness vanished with him. Attention snapped back like a rubber band released. Ashley's head jerked up, eyes suddenly finding Homelander exactly where he'd been. "Homelander?" She started toward the stage. "Are you—" He was on her in 3 strides, grabbing her tablet, scrolling through the social media feeds with increasing franticness. The posts were still there, the trending hashtags. Thousands of people discussing what they'd seen, sharing theories, building narratives. None of them about him. "Fix this," he said, voice flat and dead. "Fix this now. Fix what the stranger were trying to... Not him. This." He shoved the tablet back at her. "Make them talk about me. Make them remember." Ashley scanned the feeds, understanding dawning cold and terrible. "Homelander, I don't think we can force people to..." "Then make it news. Make it scandal. Make it anything. I don't care what they say about me, but they will say something." His voice cracked slightly. "They will see me." Ashley opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. For the first time in 5 years, working with Homelander, she had absolutely no idea what to tell him. In the safe house across the city, the boys watched the viral clips for the 4th time. "Fucking hell," Butcher muttered. "Look at the comments." Huey scrolled through them. "They're not even mentioning Homelander. How is that possible? He was right there." Kimiko's hands moved quickly. Frenchie translated. "She says it's like a blind spot. The mind sees him, but can't hold the information, can't assign importance. That's..." Huey struggled for the word. "That's worse than killing him." "Yeah." Butcher leaned back. "It is. Because Homelander could survive violence. Could bounce back from attacks, from setbacks, from physical threats. But this was watching a god realize that faith was optional. And gods without faith didn't die. They just stopped mattering." Butcher found him in Battery Park, sitting on a bench that overlooked the harbor. Late afternoon sun turned the water to hammered copper. Tourists took photos. Joggers passed. The city continued its relentless momentum, indifferent to the quiet collapse happening in Vought Tower, 15 blocks north. The stranger sat with his hands folded, watching the Statue of Liberty in the distance. Not like a tourist admiring a landmark. Like someone remembering when it was just an idea. Butcher sat down without invitation. Pulled a flask from his coat, took a drink, didn't offer to share. "Impressive work with Homelander," he said, "making him invisible to his own fans. That's crueler than killing him. I didn't make him invisible. I simply removed the compulsion to pay attention." The stranger didn't look away from the harbor. "People choose to ignore things every day. I just made it easier." "Right. And the contract thing, the truth bomb you dropped on Vought. Same principle. I didn't create the lies. I simply stopped them from hiding." Butcher took another drink. "You're either the best thing that's happened to this city or the worst. Haven't decided which yet." "Those aren't mutually exclusive categories." "No, I suppose they're not." Butcher capped the flask. "I've got a proposition for you. I don't do deals. Everyone does deals. Everyone needs things. I don't need anything from you." The stranger finally turned, meeting Butcher's eyes. "But I'll listen." Butcher leaned forward, elbows on knees. "You can do things. Things that shouldn't be possible. You've proven that. And you clearly don't like Vought or their pet psychopath any more than I do. I don't have opinions about them. I'm simply curious what they do when their tools stop working. Well, here's an opportunity for more curiosity." Butcher's voice dropped hardened. "Help me kill Homelander. Proper kill. No coming back, no recovery, no PR spin. You clearly can hurt him in ways he can't defend against. So let's finish what you started." The stranger regarded him with that same patient neutrality. "Why would I do that? Because he's a monster? Because he's killed innocent people? Because the world would be better without him? The world would be different. Better is subjective, not to the people he's murdered." "True." The stranger paused. "But you're not asking for them. You're asking for yourself." Butcher's jaw clenched. "Does it matter?" "It's the only thing that matters. You want him dead because he took someone from you. Because killing him might fill the hole that loss created. Because you've built your entire identity around this single act of revenge." The stranger's tone didn't judge. Simply stated fact. "I won't be your weapon. I'm not asking you to be my weapon. I'm asking you to help remove a threat. You're asking me to absolve you of choice, to make his death inevitable rather than your decision." The stranger stood. "That's the opposite of freedom." Butcher stood to frustration bleeding into anger. "You talk about freedom like it's some pure thing. But people like Homelander, they take freedom. They crush it. So yeah, I want him dead. And I'll do it myself if I have to. But it'd be a hell of a lot easier with your help." "Easier isn't better. Easy is surviving another day without that bastard laser-eyeing some kid because the kid's mom didn't smile right." The stranger studied him. Really looked for the first time since Butcher sat down. You mean that? You genuinely believe killing him serves something beyond your own pain? I know it does. Then prove it. The world stopped, not metaphorically. Actually stopped. Sound cut out mid-syllable. The jogger 20 feet away froze mid-stride. Seagulls hung motionless in the air. Waves on the harbor locked in place, caught between crests. Butcher's breath caught. What? 10 seconds. The stranger's voice cut through the silence like a knife through silk. I'm giving you 10 seconds of absolute freedom. No interference. No consequences beyond what you create. No one will stop you. No one will see. No evidence will remain unless you choose to leave it. Movement to Butcher's left. Homelander stood 15 feet away, looking confused. His suit, still perfect cape, still dramatic, but his eyes darted around the frozen park with growing panic. What the fuck is this? Homelander demanded. An opportunity, the stranger said. For both of you. Butcher's hand moved to his coat before conscious thought. The gun was there. Always there. Loaded with rounds that shouldn't work, but might. He'd carried this weight for so long, it felt like part of his skeleton. 10 seconds, the stranger repeated. Starting now. Time resumed. Not for the world that stayed frozen locked in amber, but for the three of them in this bubble of possibility. Homelander saw Butcher, saw the gun. His eyes went red. You want to go right here, right now? Homelander laughed sharp and bitter. I've been waiting for you to try, waiting for an excuse. Butcher raised the gun. Steady. Years of practice, years of hate, years of imagining exactly this moment. Homelander didn't move. Didn't need to. You can't kill me. You've tried before. You'll try again. And I'll still be here. Not this time. Butcher's finger touched the trigger. The stranger spoke quietly. In 8 seconds, time restarts. Whatever happens here becomes permanent. Choose carefully. Butcher's hand didn't shake. The gun aimed center mass exactly where training dictated. One pull. That's all it would take. The stranger had removed every obstacle Homelander couldn't dodge, couldn't block, couldn't even see it coming in time to matter. 10 years of hunting crystallized into one moment. 7 seconds. Homelander's sneer faltered. You won't do it. You're too weak. You talk about justice and revenge, but you're just another... Shut up. Butcher's voice came out flat, dead. 6 seconds. He saw Becca. Not a memory, not a ghost. Just the fact of her. The hole her absence created. The rage that filled it. The certainty that Homelander's death would mean something, would balance the scales, would make the universe slightly less wrong. 5 seconds, but he also saw the next day. And the one after. Waking up with Homelander dead, and the rage still there, because rage didn't need a target. It just needed fuel. And he'd been burning on hate for so long, he didn't know what he'd be without it. 4 seconds. The gun felt impossibly heavy. 3 seconds. Do it, Homelander said, not mocking now. Something else in his voice. Almost curiosity. Pull the trigger. Prove you're not just talk. 2 seconds. Butcher's finger tensed. 1 second. He lowered the gun. Not from mercy. Not from weakness. From the sudden crushing realization that killing Homelander wouldn't end anything. Wouldn't bring Becca back. Wouldn't heal the wound. It would just prove that he'd become exactly what he hated, someone who solved problems with violence and called it justice. The stranger snapped his fingers. Time crashed back like a wave. Sound flooded in. The jogger continued past. Seagulls cried overhead. The harbor resumed its endless rhythm. Homelander was gone. Not vanished, just never there. The 10 seconds existed only in the space the stranger had created, then dissolved like morning fog. Butcher stood alone in the park, gun still in his hand, aimed at nothing. The stranger sat back down on the bench. Interesting. Butcher's legs felt weak. He sat heavily, not bothering to holster the weapon. You were testing me. I was offering you exactly what you asked for. Freedom to act without interference. The stranger watched the harbor again. You chose not to. I chose. Butcher stopped. Started again. He deserves to die. Perhaps. But you didn't pull the trigger. So either your conviction is weaker than you claim, or you're beginning to understand that revenge and justice aren't synonyms. Or I realize that killing him in some magic bubble where it doesn't count isn't the same as actually doing it. It would have counted. His death would have been permanent. But you're right about one thing: you chose to make it not matter. The stranger glanced at him. The question is why? Butcher didn't answer immediately. His hand tightened on the gun, then relaxed. Because if I kill him in a place where there's no consequences, no risk, no real choice, then I'm not making a decision. I'm just being handed an outcome. And I'd rather hate him alive than stop hating him dead. Butcher's laugh came out bitter. That make me pathetic. It makes you honest. The stranger stood. Most people offered what I just gave you would pull the trigger and justify it afterward. You saw the justification for the lie it was. So what now? You proved your point. I'm trapped by my own bullshit. Congratulations. I didn't prove anything. You did. The stranger started walking. Paused. Your prison isn't Homelander. It's not Vought. It's not even your grief. Then what is it? The story you tell yourself about who you are. The one where you're the righteous killer, the justified avenger, the man who will do what needs doing. The stranger looked back. That story requires Homelander alive. If he dies, you'll need a new one. And you're afraid there's nothing underneath the performance. The words hit like physical blows. Fuck you, Butcher said quietly. Probably, but I'm not wrong. The stranger walked away, footsteps silent on the path. Disappeared into the crowd without trying. Simply became one more person in a city of millions, indistinguishable and forgotten. Butcher sat on the bench until sunset, gun still in his hand, staring at the harbor. That night back at the safe house, Huey found him cleaning weapons in mechanical silence. You okay? No. Butcher didn't look up, but I'm not dead either. So there's that. Did you find him, the mystery man? Yeah. And Butcher set down the pistol he'd been about to use, picked up another. And I learned something I didn't want to know, which is that I'm not the hero of this story. I'm not even the villain. Butcher's hands moved with practiced efficiency, disassembling, cleaning, reassembling. I'm just some bastard who's been pretending so long he forgot what he was pretending to be. Huey sat down across from him, waited. He gave me a shot at Homelander. Clean shot. No interference, no consequences. Jesus, and I didn't take it. Butcher finally looked up. So either I'm getting soft, or I'm finally admitting that killing that cunt won't fix what's broken. Haven't decided which is worse. Huey absorbed this. Maybe it's not about fixing. Maybe it's just about choosing better. Maybe. Butcher returned to his work. Or maybe I'm just a coward who can't pull the trigger when it counts. But his hands didn't shake. And for the first time in years, the gun felt less like purpose and more like weight. In Battery Park, on the bench where two men had sat, someone had left a small card. Black stock, no text, just an address in silver print. The wind picked it up, carried it into the harbor, where it dissolved like smoke. The choice was made. Now they'd all have to live with what came next. The building appeared on West 44th Street overnight. Residents swore it hadn't been there Thursday evening, but Friday morning there it stood, a narrow establishment wedged between a Thai restaurant and a parking garage, looking like it had occupied that space for decades. Black door with brass fixtures, no sign. Just a single word etched in the glass: Lux. The doorman, an older black man with silver hair, and the bearing of someone who'd seen everything twice, opened the entrance for the first customers at exactly 8 p.m. Inside, warm light spilled across mahogany and leather. A piano sat in the corner, playing itself with practiced melancholy. The bar stretched the length of the room, bottles arranged with geometric precision, and behind the bar, pouring drinks with unhurried grace, stood the stranger from Believe Expo. Word spread the way, secrets do in Manhattan. Not through advertising or social media, but through whispers between people who recognized when something didn't fit the normal pattern. By midnight, Lux had a line around the block. By 2 a.m. that line included 2 members of the 7. A train pushed past the velvet rope without waiting. The doorman didn't stop him, just opened the door with that same patient courtesy as if he'd been expecting exactly this. Inside, the piano music wrapped around A train like warm water. He'd come here to prove something, that he wasn't washed up, that he still mattered, that the whispers about his declining speed were just jealous competitors spreading lies. Instead, he found himself sitting at the bar, accepting a drink he hadn't ordered. The stranger set down a tumbler of amber liquid. "You look tired." "I'm fine." A train's hand shook slightly as he lifted the glass. "Just came to check out the new spot. See what all the hype's about." "The hype is that people come here and tell the truth. Often when they don't mean to." "That's supposed to scare me." "It's supposed to prepare you." The stranger moved down the bar, serving another customer. Left A train alone with his drink and his thoughts. The whiskey tasted like expensive regret. A train stared into it, seeing his reflection distorted in the liquid. "I'm the fastest man alive," he said to no one in particular. "Fastest. Nobody's ever been faster." The stranger returned. Didn't comment. Just refilled the glass that hadn't quite emptied. "I had a record. World record. Guinness and everything." A train's words came faster now, like his mouth was racing his brain. Then my heart started giving out. Too much V, too many years running too fast. So I slowed down, just a little, milliseconds. Nobody was supposed to notice, but they did. "Yeah." A train's laugh came out broken. "They always do. Vaught's got analytics on everything. Speed, reaction time, marketability." My numbers started dropping, so I took more V, pushed harder. And now I can't stop, because if I stop, I'm nothing. The stranger cleaned a glass that didn't need cleaning. "You're running from replacement." "I'm running because it's all I know how to do." A train set down his drink. "I can't be slow. Can't be normal. Can't be the guy who used to be fast. So I keep running, keep taking hits. My heart can't handle, keep pretending I'm not dying by inches. And if you stopped, then I'd have to face the fact that I've been running away from myself for so long, I forgot what I was running toward." A train stood abruptly. "This was a mistake." "Probably." The stranger didn't try to stop him. "But at least now you know what you're running from." A train made it to the door. Stopped. Turned back. "Does it get better if I stop?" The stranger met his eyes. "I don't know. But it gets honest." A train left without responding. The door closed softly behind him. 20 minutes later, the Deep arrived. He came in loudly, greeting people he didn't know like they were old friends. Laughed too hard at jokes no one had told. Ordered the most expensive drink on the menu and made sure everyone heard him do it. The stranger set down a beer instead. Domestic. Common. The Deep stared at it. "I ordered the..." "You ordered what you thought would make people respect you. I gave you what you actually want." The Deep smile fixed in place. "You don't know what I want. You want to be seen as more than a joke. More than the guy who talks to fish. More than someone who got added to the 7 because he looked good in marketing materials." The stranger leaned against the bar. "You want genuine connection, and you've been looking for it in all the wrong places. I connect with people just fine. You connect with your image of what people want you to be. That's not the same thing." The Deep took a long drink, set down the glass harder than necessary. "You think you're smart? Reading people, everyone in this city thinks they can see through everyone else. I don't need to see through you. You're transparent already. The stranger refilled his glass. You've built an entire personality around needing to be needed. And when people don't need you, you force the connection. Through charm, through desperation, through whatever leverage you can find. That's not... The Deep stopped. Started again. I just want people to like me. No, you want people to validate your existence. Because you've never been comfortable validating it yourself. The Deep's hands clenched. What do you know about it? About any of it? You show up out of nowhere, open some bar, and suddenly you're everyone's therapist. I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to make you see yourself without the performance. The stranger gestured to the mirror behind the bar. What do you see? The Deep looked, saw his reflection, saw the forced smile, the desperate eyes, the posture of someone constantly seeking approval. I see someone who's trying. You see someone who's exhausted from pretending the trying matters more than the result. The stranger's voice remained level, factual. You've confused motion with progress. And now you're so deep in the performance, you've forgotten what you were performing for. The Deep stood. This was a mistake. Most honest things feel that way at first. The Deep left. The door closed. The stranger returned to polishing glasses. The piano continued its work, and the line outside grew longer. In Vought Tower, Ashley watched security footage of Lux on repeat. How did this happen? She directed the question at no one specific. 6 people sat around the conference table, none willing to answer. The building appeared overnight, her head of security finally said. No construction permits, no ownership records. It's not even in the city database. According to official records, that address doesn't exist. But it does exist. It's there. People are going inside. Ashley zoomed in on the footage. And they're coming out changed. Changed how? The Deep left looking like someone had stripped his skin off. A-Train looked, I don't know, smaller. Less certain. She pulled up another clip. And they're talking. Posting things on social media they'd never normally say. A junior executive raised her hand tentatively. Should we issue a statement? Distance the 7 from what a bar? Ashley rubbed her temples. We can't fight a bar. We can shut it down. Health code violations, noise complaints, whatever we need. Ashley considered this. Get a team together. City inspectors, fire marshal, anyone who can find a reason to close it. And get our legal team ready. If this goes public, I want options. 3 hours later, a convoy of city vehicles pulled up outside Lux. Inspectors, firefighters, police, a coordinated show of bureaucratic force. They entered with clipboards and authority ready to find violations. The stranger greeted them at the door. Gentlemen, ladies, welcome to Lux. Can I offer you a drink while you work? The lead inspector, a career civil servant named Rodriguez, who'd shut down hundreds of establishments, stepped forward. This is an official inspection. We've received complaints about an establishment that shouldn't exist operating in a space that isn't zoned for commercial use. The stranger smiled slightly. Yes, I imagine you have. Rodriguez blinked. You're admitting to operating illegally. I'm not operating at all. The space simply is. People come. I serve them drinks. Truth emerges. Where's the operation? Sir, we're going to need to see your liquor license, health permits, building certificates. I don't have any of those things. The inspectors exchanged glances. This was supposed to be difficult. People usually produced fake documents, made elaborate excuses. Rodriguez pulled out his citation pad. Then I'm shutting you down, effective immediately. You're welcome to try. The stranger stepped aside, gestured them in. The inspection team spread through Lux with professional efficiency. They checked refrigeration temperatures, measured exit distances, examined electrical systems. Found violations at every turn, outdated wiring, insufficient ventilation, no proper permits anywhere. Rodriguez filled out 3 pages of citations. Looked up to hand them over. The stranger was serving drinks. The bar was full. People laughed and talked and confessed things they'd kept buried for years. "Sir, I just wrote you up for." "I know. Thank you for your thoroughness." The stranger accepted the citations without reading them, set them on the bar. "Will there be anything else?" Rodriguez stared. "You need to close, now. These violations are serious." The stranger poured a drink, slid it across the bar to Rodriguez. "You've shut down hundreds of places. How many of them made people lighter when they walked out?" Rodriguez looked at the drink, at the citations, at the people in Lux who seemed happier, lighter, more honest than anyone he'd seen in city establishments with perfect permits. He left the drink untouched, pulled out his radio to call it in. Static, dead air. He tried his phone. No signal. 3 bars outside, 0 inside. His supervisor's number went straight to voicemail. The department's emergency line rang endlessly without answer. Rodriguez looked up. The stranger was watching him. Not smiling, not mocking, just waiting. "I'm calling this in to the city," Rodriguez said, though he wasn't sure how anymore. "Of course." The inspection team retreated, filed their reports. By morning, Lux was headline news, and absolutely nothing changed. The building remained. The door stayed open. The line grew longer. By Saturday afternoon, Vaught's legal team had filed 17 different motions to shut down Lux. All of them vanished into bureaucratic limbo. Judges couldn't find the case files. Clerks swore they'd never received the paperwork. The entire legal system seemed to develop amnesia around anything involving that specific address. Ashley stood at her window, looking toward the part of the city where Lux existed, in defiance of everything that should be possible. "He's doing this on purpose," she said. Her chief counsel looked up from his laptop. "Who?" "The stranger. The one from Believe Expo. He's not hiding. He's not fighting us. He's just existing and making us look incompetent for trying to stop him." "So what do you want to do?" Ashley's phone buzzed. A message from Vaught's crisis management team. "Social media trending against us. Public sees us as bullying a small business. Approval ratings down 8% since Lux open." She made a decision. Stop trying to shut it down. But every move we make against him fails publicly. Every attempt makes us look weaker. She turned from the window. "We need to change the narrative. Make him the threat instead of the victim." "How?" Ashley pulled up a contact. Someone who specialized in problems that needed creative solutions. "We give them a reason to fear him instead of sympathize with him." "Like what?" "Like associating him with something dangerous. A cult, violence, something that makes people see Lux as a threat to public safety instead of a quirky new bar." Her fingers hovered over the send button. "We manufacture a crisis, and we make sure he's at the center of it." The chief counsel shifted uncomfortably. "That's aggressive. We're out of subtle options." Ashley hit send. "Set it up for Monday morning. By Monday night, the city will be begging us to shut him down." In Lux, the piano played on. The stranger poured drinks. And people continued to arrive, drawn by something they couldn't name, but desperately needed. The absence of performance. Either way, they kept coming. And the stranger kept letting them see themselves. Monday morning, 6:47 a.m., a fire started in the building next to Lux. Small at first electrical malfunction, according to the initial report. Smoke billowed into the street. Fire trucks arrived within minutes. By 7:15, 3 people were hospitalized with smoke inhalation. By 8:10, SARS investigators found accelerant residue. By 8:30, a witness came forward claiming to have seen cult members in black robes entering the building at dawn. The witness was a Vought contractor. The accelerant was military grade. The investigator who found it had received a generous consulting fee from a subsidiary that didn't exist 3 days ago. But the news cameras didn't know that. They broadcast the burning building, the hospitalized victims, the witness testimony about mysterious figures associated with that new bar where people go to confess their sins. By 9 a.m. Lux was a national story. Ashley watched the coverage from Vought Tower phone pressed to her ear. "Tell me it's working." Her crisis consultant's voice crackled through. "Working beautifully. Social media is already turning. People are scared. Talking about cults, brainwashing dangerous influences. Give it 6 hours, and you'll have protesters demanding Lux be shut down. And the connection to our buried 6 layers deep. No one will trace it back to Vought. You're the concerned corporate citizen, not the puppet master." Ashley ended the call, allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Then her tablet lit up with notifications. Internal email system. Flagged urgent. She opened the first message. From legal to board of directors. Timestamp 6:52 a.m. Rebelieve initiative. Required disclosure. The Heaven Simulation Chamber is a combination of VR technology and pharmaceutical-grade emotional manipulation. No actual spiritual contact occurs. Revenue projections were based on exploiting grief. Attached are internal communications confirming full departmental knowledge of fraudulent marketing. Ashley's hands went numb. She opened the second message. From PR to communications. Homelander Incident Management. All positive coverage of Homelander since 2019 has required financial incentives to media outlets. Organic approval rating currently 34%. Attached payment records and editorial control contracts. Third message. Fourth. Fifth. Every email chain that should have been buried behind NDAs and plausible deniability was suddenly appending itself to routine Monday morning communications. Not hacked. The security team confirmed 0 breaches. The emails were simply confessing. Subject lines rewrote themselves mid-transmission. Strategic partnership discussion became bribery of public officials. Narrative optimization became falsification of incident reports. Talent management protocol became suppression of assault allegations. Ashley's phone exploded with calls. Board members, investors, department heads. She ignored them all. Pulled up the server logs. The changes weren't coming from outside. They were emerging from within the system itself, as if the infrastructure had grown tired of maintaining lies and decided to tell the truth instead. Every archived file, every backed-up email, every cloud-stored document across 3 years of corporate communication, all of it becoming honest. Gerald Chen burst into her office without knocking. "We have to take the servers offline." "We tried. It says shutting down makes it worse. The backups start broadcasting themselves." "Broadcasting where?" Ashley pulled up a new window, showed him. Someone had created a website. Simple. Clean. Just a scrolling feed of Vought's internal communications displayed in real time as they transformed into truth. The site had been live for 8 minutes. It already had 4 million visitors. "Who's hosting this?" Gerald's voice climbed toward panic. "We don't know. The domain was registered this morning to a company that doesn't exist. The servers are distributed across 12 countries. Legal says taking it down would require international cooperation. That'll take months." "Months?" "We have hours before this destroys us." Ashley's laptop pinged. New email from an address she didn't recognize. Subject line, "You wanted a crisis." The message body contained 1 sentence. "Careful what you manufacture." No signature, no trace data. Just those 4 words. Ashley understood then. Not gradually. All at once, with terrible clarity. The stranger hadn't retaliated against their false flag operation. He'd simply made it irrelevant by doing what he'd been doing since Believe Expo, removing the ability to hide. Vought had tried to make him look dangerous. He'd responded by making them look honest. Across the city, reporters fact-checked the leaked documents. Found them verifiable. Started asking questions Vought's PR team had no approved answers for. In the safe house. The boys watched the news with something close to awe. "Fucking hell," Butcher muttered. "He's doing our job for us." Huey scrolled through the leaked files on his laptop. "This is everything. Every cover-up, every bribe, every Jesus they paid off the families of people Homelander killed. Kimiko's hands moved rapidly. Frenchie translated. She says he's not doing our job. He's showing us we never needed to do it. The system was always ready to confess. It just needed permission. Permission from what? From something that doesn't care about the consequences of truth. The news cut to breaking coverage. Homelander landing outside Vought Tower, walking through a crowd of reporters who shouted questions he didn't answer. His smile looked painted on, with a shaking hand. Inside the building, he found Ashley in the executive suite. "Fix this," he said. "I can't. You're the head of crisis management. Manage the fucking crisis." Homelander, we're past crisis management. We're in full systemic collapse. Every lie we've told is now public record. Every cover-up is exposed. I can't spin this. Nobody can. His eyes glowed red. Then we remove the source. Where's the stranger? Where's Lux? You can't. Watch me. Homelander launched through the window. Glass exploded outward. He flew toward West 44th Street with the trajectory of a missile. He found Lux exactly where it had been. Landed hard enough to crack pavement. Cameras from the morning news crews were already there, drawn by the same instinct that brought them to disasters. The stranger stood in the doorway, waiting. "You did this," Homelander said. Didn't shout. The quiet made it worse. "The emails, the leaks. You're destroying everything I built." "I haven't destroyed anything. I simply stopped helping you hide what was already there." "That's the same thing. Is it?" The stranger tilted his head. "You built an empire on performance, on people believing a story instead of seeing the truth. I just made the truth easier to see. You made me look weak. I made you visible. There's a difference." Homelander's fists clenched. "You're going to fix this. You're going to make those files disappear. You're going to..." "I'm going to do nothing." The stranger's voice remained level, factual. "Because you don't need me to fix anything. You need to decide who you are when people can see clearly. I know who I am. I'm the Homelander. You're whatever the audience believes. And right now, they're not sure what to believe." The stranger gestured toward the news cameras. "Which is the first honest moment you've had in years." Homelander turned toward the cameras. The crews filmed him, broadcast him. But something was different. The reporters weren't looking at him with fear or awe. They were looking at him with assessment, calculation. The clinical gaze of people trying to decide if what they'd been told matched what they were seeing. He'd been weighed, and the measurement was still pending. "They'll forget this," Homelander said. "Give it a week, a month. They'll remember why they loved me, perhaps. Or perhaps they'll remember why they were afraid. Either way." The stranger stepped back into Lux. "That's their choice, not yours." The door closed. Homelander stood alone on the cracked pavement. Cameras recording, reporters watching. The city waiting for him to do something that would confirm or deny everything the leaks had revealed. He flew away without speaking. The cameras tracked his departure, then turned back to Lux, where people were already lining up again, drawn by something stronger than fear. By noon, 3 Vought executives had resigned. By 2 p.m., the SEC announced an investigation. By 4 p.m., congressional hearings were scheduled. The false flag fire was forgotten, drowned out by the tsunami of truth that made a single building fire seem quaint. In Vought Tower, Ashley sat in the empty boardroom. The executives had scattered. The crisis team had dissolved. She was alone with 3 laptops, all displaying different news channels covering the same story from different angles. Vought International was collapsing. Not from violence, not from competition, from honesty. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered without knowing why. "Ms. Barrett." The stranger's voice, calm as ever. "You tried to manufacture a crisis to make me the villain." "I did." "How did that work out?" Ashley laughed. Short, bitter, utterly exhausted. "You made us the villain instead." "No, I just made you the truth. You did the rest. A pause. For what it's worth, I admire the attempt. It showed creativity. Is that supposed to comfort me? It's supposed to acknowledge that you tried to play the game using the old rules. You couldn't have known the rules had changed. Changed how? You can't fight truth with lies anymore. The machinery's broken. What you do next? That's the interesting question. The call ended. Ashley stared at her phone. Then at the news coverage. Then at the empty boardroom that had hosted 100 meetings where truth was negotiated like any other commodity. She stood, walked to her office, started drafting her resignation letter. Halfway through, she stopped, deleted it, opened a new document instead. Started writing down everything she knew about Vaught's operations. Every cover-up, every crime, everything they'd buried that the leaks hadn't yet revealed. Not because she'd been caught. Because she was tired of carrying the weight of other people's lies. The document grew, page after page. Names, dates, crimes. She worked through the night. By dawn, she had 93 pages. She sent it to 3 different news organizations. Encrypted, anonymized, irreversible. Then she went home. Slept for the first time in 4 days. In Lux, the piano played its perpetual melody. The stranger served drinks. People came and went lighter when they left. By Wednesday, Lux had been standing for 5 days. By Thursday, the line outside stretched around the block. By Friday, people stopped asking how long it would be there. It simply was. And that seemed to be enough. Late Friday night, when the crowd had thinned and only a handful of patrons remained, the stranger set down his towel, locked the register, turned off the lights behind the bar. The piano continued playing, would continue long after he left. He walked to the door, paused, looked back at the space that had existed because it needed to and would stop existing when it didn't. Then he stepped outside. The night air carried the smell of rain. The city hummed with its endless rhythm. Somewhere people were lying to themselves and others. Somewhere truth was struggling against comfortable fiction. The stranger walked down West 44th Street, turned a corner, didn't disappear, didn't vanish in dramatic fashion. Simply became one more person in a city of millions, distinguishable from no one remembered by everyone, who'd sat across from him and seen themselves without the performance. Behind him, Lux remained. The door unlocked. The piano playing, the lights warm, waiting for whoever came next. And the city continued its work. Changed, perhaps. Or simply more honest about what it had always been. Either way, it would decide for itself. The stranger had removed the mirrors. Now they'd have to live with what they saw. This is not a story about a demon destroying the world, but about how he changes a sinful one, piece by piece. If this world is seen as a diseased body, then those with the greatest influence are the cancer cells within it. That cancer is Homelander. That cancer is Vought. But instead of attacking the tumor directly, he triggers the world's own forced self-defense mechanism, Billy Butcher. Perhaps that was the best choice any crossover character has ever made upon entering the world of the boys.